There are so many interesting, horrifying, or downright weird things in this big world of ours.
Each week, we'll bring you a new true crime story that has little to no coverage in English.
Let us do the translations so you don't have to. I'm Laura.
I'm Petra.
And I'm Viktória. Welcome to another episode of Translation Murder. So today I have a little bit of a more recent story for you. It's from Hungary again. You probably guessed it. And I think it's probably the most recent one that I brought to the podcast so far. It's from the early 2000s, actually. And this story is quite well known in Hungary as the Fekete Angyal ügy, or the Black Angel case.
Say that 5 times fast. Sorry, that was a
Fekete
tongue
Angyal
twister.
ügy. Yeah, just for the linguists again, Fekete is black, Angyal is angel, and ügy is case. So it's just a direct translation of how people usually refer to this case.
It kind of brings to mind like one of those nurse killers or something like that a bit.
Well, and
Oh.
maybe it's exactly because it's about a case like that, and it has like some maybe similar elements to one of the cases that Petra brought before, the nursing home murders. It's not entirely the same, or like, I don't know, maybe it's more different than similar, but there are a lot of similarities there. Yeah, and this whole case, so it's quite well known in Hungary, and it raised a lot of like public interest and debate at the time about the healthcare system and its trustworthiness in Hungary.
Okay.
So the story begins in early 2001. Sorry, Meadow, why are you in front of my notes all the time? Sorry. Okay. Please move. Yes. Okay. I'm starting again. So the story begins in early 2001 at the Gyulanyírő Hospital in Budapest, Budapest is the capital of Hungary. You already know that. This hospital has a long history. It was originally founded in the late 19th century, and it functioned originally as a psychiatric hospital until the mid-20th century, or it was actually called more of an insane asylum at the time when it was originally founded. It was a little bit more kind of prison-like, not really like an actual hospital. So they were not really necessarily treating patients, but it was more like kind of, about containing them. And during the 1930s is when Gyulanyírő, who was a famous neurologist, he became the director of this hospital. He really advocated for actually treating patients, actually doing more like a kind of classical type of hospital work here. And that's why the hospital was then later named after him. So originally it was only a psychiatric hospital, but then during the Second World War, they started treating a lot of patients, and then additional departments were added to psychiatry, and it's still an active hospital today.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's surprising. It's still active, like after what, 100 and something years, like.
Yeah. I mean, of course, the kind of how it is organized and whatever, like a lot of things changed, but basically it's like, yeah, it's still working now, and just maybe, of course, not exactly the same format as it was originally.
And I'm just thinking
it's
also
a good thing if it was an asylum.
Yeah. And an insane asylum when it wasn't PC to, or now it's not
No.
PC to say that anymore, but yeah.
No,
But I'm
of
just
course.
thinking also like the buildings in Helsinki, like the old psychiatric facilities, like all of them had black mold at one point, so I think they had to like remove them to different locations and stuff. So I think this is kind of interesting too.
Yeah, but I would say that just according to my personal experience, people in Hungary are a little bit less concerned about mold than people in Finland. I'm not saying that they are not concerned about it, but I noticed that in Finland it's on the top of the list of concerns about buildings, which is fair, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
might be
So there
also,
could be mold.
Yeah.
There
They
could
just
be
don't
easily.
care about it.
Yeah. And I don't exactly know if it was, I think probably it was originally one building, and I think now there are several that kind of belong to the same institution. But now I think psychiatry is still a core subject of the clinic, but they have other departments. And actually, this story that I'm talking about today is not related to the psychiatric ward at all. But these events were taking place in one of their internal medicine units. So this internal medicine unit was reportedly only partly an active internal medicine unit, and partly it was more like what we call in Hungarian an elfekvő, which is kind of hard to translate, but it's if you would want to translate it directly, it's kind of a place where people are just lying there for a long time. So this is where people who are like most commonly elderly with chronic illnesses who are in need of long-term care, and they usually have very low chances of recovery, are cared for. So you could kind of think about it as a hospice unit in practice, but it's not officially a hospice unit. So there are hospice like facilities as well in Hungary, not enough of them, of course, but this is more like just, people who cannot be let out of the hospital. They will likely be there, and usually they don't have a very high chance of ever leaving.
Okay.
Do you think is there a name for these kind of units in English or in Finnish?
I mean, I would say hospice would be the closest thing that
Yeah.
I can think of. I don't know. I don't know if like terminal care unit is a thing. I
Yeah, but
don't.
they're
Yeah.
not, I think like normally they don't say that this is terminal care. It's just kind of the reality that it usually is.
Yeah. So then I would say maybe hospice is the closest thing in my mind. But
Yeah.
yeah.
In my
Yeah.
mind, it
Yeah.
sounds like the regular hospital of Finland. They're just full of dying elderly nowadays, and like that's what I've read. Like why it's so hard to go to the hospital is because there's no proper places for the elderly. So the hospitals that are meant to treat other illnesses are just full of elderly who are too
Yeah.
ill.
So this is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. I didn't mean to laugh. It just I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna
I
say
mean,
something completely. I thought you were gonna say something completely different. I thought you were gonna say, yeah, because the hospitals are so bad in Finland that when you go there, you're gonna die. Yeah, okay,
yeah. But I mean,
okay,
it is ridiculous that that's the state of things.
yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
Well, of
I think
course. Yeah.
we need more nurses and care facilities for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially for elderly people, so that the actual
Yeah.
hospitals would be used for treating also other people.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's exactly how this unit was. That it was partly like an active care unit and partly this long-term, usually terminal care type of situation. And then the medical staff of this internal medicine unit started noticing at some point what they described as an unusually high death rate among patients during certain night shifts. And what they also noticed is that in the hospital records, that there was a shortage of tranquilizers and painkillers, which suggested that some of these medications were maybe being used improperly or without authorization. So basically, I interpret this as that there was less of them than what was supposed to be based on just the documentations.
Did they
And
did they like over how long a period was this that they were kind of like, huh, something's
yeah, so these kind of seemingly more frequent deaths started raising red flags gradually during the past couple of years leading up to 2001. So it wasn't like a sudden thing, but I think between 1999 and 2001, there were some suspicions, and then it kind of just came to a conclusion during 2001. When there was like an official report made, and the suspicion immediately fell on one of their own co-workers, which was a 24-year-old nurse called Tímea Faludi, who had been working at the hospital since 1994. So Tímea began her career as a nurse right after she completed her studies in 94, and she started working at this specific internal medicine unit in 99. And we don't really know that much about her personal life. or her kind of early life. You probably, I think there was some comment in one of the articles that she didn't really get along very well with her mother or something like that, but nothing, I didn't find anything major from her early life. But her colleagues described her as diligent and hardworking. And they also noted that she had a kind of a difficulty in forming relationships with her coworkers, and she was occasionally dishonest about certain things. So sometimes she was caught in small lies. For example, she claimed that she was married, but she wasn't married, or she claimed that she had been pregnant several times before, which was also not true. So these kind of not super serious lies, but
also very random, not like, oh, I didn't take your lunch, but more
yeah,
like, why would you lie? Just for your
yeah.
social status or something?
Yeah, she actually admitted later that, or she talked about these things as well, that she did lie. And then she always kind of just, so these were kind of just reflecting her, well, like the life that she was wishing for. I think this was a way for her to fit in, to kind of tell these stories that she has, I don't know, like a more interesting romantic life or something like that than she actually did.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know, I feel like this is kind of a bit common, this type of like comorbidity between this like tendency to lie and then be a nurse who's a killer. Like there's this other case that I was trying to remember, this Jane Toppin or whatever, this Jolly Jane Toppin. She was, I guess, a really, really like like prevalent liar as well when she was a nurse, and she killed like a bunch of people in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it just seemed like she was also a pathological liar or something. So
And that was actually also the case with the Japanese case, like that that it was said that this nurse had tendency to lie about, like, kind of boast about himself.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
This is
yeah,
interesting, common
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what they said about her as well, that she was always kind of just like coloring the stories a little bit more, or this was like a common thing that they noticed with her. Yeah. But some of the coworkers also said that she tended to be kind of condescending and arrogant with her coworkers. So she was not very popular, not always very nice to work with. But despite these personality traits, she seemed to be very dedicated to her work. She was also very often volunteering for extra shifts and taking on tasks outside of her official duties. So there were no complaints about her, like work moral. Yeah. So, like I said in the beginning, this unit where Thema worked as a nurse was a place where many of the patients were elderly and suffering from chronic and terminal illnesses. So it was clearly a very stressful environment. That's not surprising, but it was made even worse by the severe shortage of nursing staff, which is, I guess, also not surprising even nowadays, but it was the same in the early 2000s. So, for example, one nurse often had to care for up to 40 patients during the night shifts, which would be normally at least a 3-person job.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She also talks about how she had like these really long shifts. I think she mentioned one example when her coworker got sick and she had to work 18 hours continuously. So it's, yeah, I mean, it doesn't explain the events that happen, but it's also just it's kind of made worse, or maybe mistakes happen more easily, of course, when people are really overworked and tired.
I don't know, like I feel like maybe this is kind of a bit of an explanation in her mind. You know, she's not able to give proper care to each individual person as much as
Yeah.
they like that they deserve, basically, then
Yeah.
she kind of has taken it upon herself to limit the population at the hospital,
Yeah,
possibly.
kind of. Or it's even easier to get frustrated with people
Yeah.
when you have 40 of them at the same time and you're the only nurse taking care of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Okay, so in this unit of the hospital, this kind of general phenomenon of some nurses arbitrarily administering injections to patients was noticed in the past. So even though so how it was based on the regulations, nurses could only be authorized to administer intravenous injections with a written authorization from a doctor. So intravenous injections are not something that they could just decide to do themselves. They were able to give medication to patients through IV fluids or intramuscular injections, but not intravenous ones.
Yeah.
But this is a practice that has been kind of abused sometimes. I don't know if it's so. I just read this as a general note about this unit, not necessarily saying that this was only her, but this is something that happened before, and they even had an internal meeting at the hospital in 1999 where they really strictly forbade this practice to the staff. So it was very clear to everyone that this is not something that you can do.
Mm.
But despite this, Thimel's co-workers noticed that she still continued to carry out unauthorized treatments without medical supervision. And they also started whispering among themselves that there had been seemingly an increase in cancer patient deaths during Thimel's shifts. And she even got these nicknames, Angel of Death and Black Death. So I don't know, it was kind of a morbid joke. And this was not, this kind of increased number of deaths during her shift, it was not confirmed. I believe even later that this was really an increase, or is it just something that people somehow noticed and it started to, just this gossip started about it. She was clearly not the most well-liked person. But I read that the head of department denied during 2001, denied this allegation and said that there had been no increase in mortality in the department since she was working there, and also not during her shifts. But still, these rumors were ongoing.
Yeah, sounds like to me the gossip mill or something like that, rumor mill going.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
another one died on your shift, didn't they? And then it's just like, interesting. And then, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying it wasn't true, but it wasn't like, 100% confirmed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what happened that kind of started where really like the actual events behind these suspicions started to unfold was that on an afternoon of February 7th, 2001, two nurses reported to the hospital director that one of their colleagues witnessed on several occasions that Thimel, who had been working with him, so working with this colleague, regularly since the 1st of January, so a little over a month by that time, that she injected to dying or seriously ill patients in the department with Seduxin, which is an anti-anxiety drug. I think it's also sold by the name Valium. Maybe that's a little bit more well known, but anyway, so an anti-anxiety drug, and also morphine and potassium, or maybe potassium chloride. But there were some concrete witnesses who saw her doing these without any medical instructions, and she used an intravenous catheter that was inserted into the elbows of the patients, and they reported
The catheter inserted into the elbows?
yeah, like it was inserted into the like elbow section, but the inner part.
Okay. Okay. I was just
Why?
thinking an IV, because like usually catheters are usually used for like urine expression or that type of stuff. Like you put them up the urethra to express
Yeah, but
fluids.
it's just this, or maybe I don't know. Are these not called catheters that
I think they are
you
called
can put it
catheters also in Finnish, like catheteries, so that you would put this thing to your vein
like the yeah?
first,
There's the
and then you
needle.
can change the pipe like to different pipes, I guess. Because
Yeah, I think we just call them IVs because like
But it's
intravenous,
not the
like anything. But yeah, it
the
doesn't have
one
the
that
liquid.
is on you.
Maybe I have it
you can.
wrong. Yeah, I probably have it wrong in
No,
English.
but maybe not.
If you
So
yeah, sorry.
no, but so what they had is like basically like you said, Petra, the needle inserted into the vein, and it had just kind of you could just through that directly inject medicine into the veins, but it wasn't like the IV fluid with the pipe hanging there, because I think in that case they usually put the medicine into the IV fluid, so
Yeah.
it just kind of like
Yeah.
dropping into the pipe, so you kind of gradually get it, but you can also just give like a very concentrated shot of medicine through this needle.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you don't
so
need
I
to
just checked
put
what it is.
holes.
What is it?
Yeah, so like catheter, like indeed does like refer to the urine version, like when you need to get urine out of someone's bladder. But then venous catheter, that's the one and that you're talking about. So like in it like a venous catheter, so the one that goes into
Okay.
the vein. So yeah, so that's that. Yeah, I've never heard of it as that, but yeah, that makes more sense. So okay,
Is
you
there
are right.
another name that's maybe more common,
No,
how these
I
are
think just
referred
saying
to?
like, well, I don't know, because I just remember like when I had surgery or something, they put it in my they put it in my hand, you know, like the veins in the
Mhm.
hand, and they basically just do the, I guess, the catheter part, as you say, like, so then you can inject drugs quickly. Like for instance, anesthesia, they usually do this type of thing where they're going to inject the anesthesia into this like device that is in your vein already.
Mhm.
So I just never
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
it. Yeah. I never heard it called a catheter, but I usually just, when catheter is mentioned, I usually think of like the urine one for some reason. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, when I'm kind of talking in Hungarian about these things, which is rare, but when it happens, then that's what I would also think of, because I think
Yeah,
we
me
in
too.
Hungarian we only use katéter for the urine, and
Oh.
actually these things that I'm talking about here are usually referred to as branul,
Mm, okay.
which is coming from I don't know where,
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
from like a brand name or something of
Yeah.
the actual thing that they put in there. But
Yeah. So another name is IV catheter. So I guess, yeah, indeed, it's kind of like when you say, oh, yeah, I'm going to get an IV, it's kind of like part of the IV, but like this is the little section of the whole IV. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Semantics.
yes,
We
but
now
it's good that we
understand.
good that we clarified it here. But so just kind of going back to what the nurses were allowed to do, they were allowed to put medication into the IV liquid and kind of
Mhm.
that would gradually absorb, or I think even these intramuscular shots were allowed, but they couldn't like directly administer intravenous medications through this catheter, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, where was I?
Sorry
Yeah,
for
no,
We're
I
just
derailing.
think
desperate
no,
to
I
talk
know.
about medical instruments without understanding.
Yes, and none of us knows about it, but
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this was just a disclaimer.
Just
Do not believe what we say about
yeah,
medical
it's just from
instruments.
just personal experience. That's all we can speak from.
yes, but I mean, this all is like, I'm not saying this is not important, because it's kind of important to the story a little bit, how these medications were administered. But yeah, I don't know. If someone really wants to correct what we all just said, email us and we'll
Please do.
yeah, we'll correct it
I
in the
welcome
next
your email.
episode.
Yes. Please email me.
But her coworkers said when they reported this to the director that the patients after these shots, they died on average 5 to 6 hours after the injections. That's what they deduced from somewhere, or just they kind of I don't think they had very hard evidence, but just what they noticed. And according to the nurses, the patient's behavior probably annoyed Timo, and that's why she resorted to the injection. So kind of what we talked about, that maybe she was a little bit more frustrated. Some of these patients were really, suffering. They needed a lot of help. Maybe they were even annoying the other patients. So after this report was made, the director went to the police and filed an official complaint. But these suspicions were very, very hard to prove, as these venous catheters were already inserted into the patient's vein. So there was no like additional visible marks. She used what was already in there. So it's not really noticeable that anything else was injected. So in the absence of any concrete evidence, the police decided to install cameras in the hospital and started monitoring her work. But that didn't prove anything either, because she didn't commit any irregularities or anything suspicious under surveillance. So even despite this, I think they tried with the cameras for a week maybe, or just a few days, because the report was made on the 7th. But then finally on the 15th of February, Timel was taken into custody, and they started questioning her about these suspicions. But actually at first I don't know if they tried to like trick her a little bit. They told her that they will question her about an unrelated case from a couple of years ago, also kind of a recent case, maybe still an ongoing investigation, about a doctor who was suspected of selling drugs to patients. But then they quickly shifted the questioning to her own activities. So this first questioning was done during a polygraph test. And the results of this test, which are, I guess, famously inaccurate, could we say that? Or
I mean,
I
they're
don't know.
not infallible, I would say. Maybe that's a
Yeah.
better way to put it, that you can cheat them if you, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Or they can also, signal that you're lying, even if you're just very nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be flagged as lying constantly because my anxiety, I would be like sweating hardcore. My heart would probably be palpitating and it would just be
Especially
all
Yeah.
if
over the
you're
place.
like if you know you're being suspected of a murder or something. Yeah. I
But
guess
then
they
also
would.
the, yeah, go, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, I was just saying that it would be a very limited type of situation where you kind of don't even know that anything's going on. You're in a relaxed place with maybe people you know. Maybe then it would work.
hmm
There's no
Yeah, I don't know. I
additional.
guess they probably got a baseline, or I'm sure they do something like this. I don't know, but this what sounds logical to me, that they have like a baseline
Yeah,
value
they
going
do.
on during more like
Usually they
neutral
do.
questions. Yeah,
Like they ask you like, oh, what's the date today? What's your name? Is your name Laura Hetland or whatever? Yes, it is. So
Yeah.
then these types of
yeah,
questions are usually
or
baseline,
even
but
yeah,
yeah.
or even when they ask about this other case, that's a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
more loaded maybe than just what's the date today. But still, why would she
yeah,
lie? I guess if she knows something about it.
yeah. And I mean, also you can take like anti-anxiety medicine to also combat this, and you
Mm.
can, I don't know, I've heard of some serial killers being really good at just lying because all you have to do is just believe your lie and you can kind of get
Yeah,
past it too. Like, so,
Yeah, like
yeah,
it doesn't prove that if you don't get nervous that you would be telling the truth.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, she was not such a good liar, apparently, or, well, you can tell me what you think about this later, but basically, the polygraph test suggested that she might be responsible for up to 40 deaths, which
Whoa.
is not it's not an exact number, because I read an interview with the, I think, main investigator of the case, named Katalin Hercegné Balog, who talked about this as well, that I think they kind of ask you questions like, are you responsible for the death of one person, two people, three people? And then they kind of go up. And I think, I don't know, whenever it signals, that's kind of how they deduce what's the possible number. But it's not going to be, very exact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless she has this constant like, I have murdered 41 persons.
Yeah.
Kind of thing she thinks.
Yeah. Yeah. But basically, what this was good for is that they had this sign that she might have indeed killed some people, or she might be responsible for their deaths in some way. But this interview was really interesting with the investigator. She also described how the whole like questioning and the email's testimonies went after that. So the first questioning, so there was first this polygraph test, and after that she got involved, this investigator, and she started talking with Tima about, just anything. She was really emphasizing that when she is questioning people, it's more like she really lets them lead the discussion, lets them kind of talk freely about things that they are ready to talk about. So she's not really kind of pushing the questions or asking about specific things. So apparently this first official testimony was lasted a little bit over 5 hours. That's pretty long. I don't know if it's considered long on average, but sounds pretty long to me. And
Yeah.
at first
It does, in my mind too.
Yeah.
And at first they only talked about kind of her life and her work, and Tima was saying how much she loves her job and that she's a very empathetic nurse. Patients love her. It's her life being a nurse. Yeah, just kind of her profession and her enthusiasm for like healthcare and caring for people, her motivation, why she became a nurse, things like that. And then the investigator also said that she had the impression that Tima was a little bit like a big child who was really craving to be understood and accepted. So she was really kind of openly telling this whole story about herself. And also generally, she was really, really cooperative, like totally wanting to sort of help the investigation. The investigator was also saying that she perhaps had this kind of internal like pressure to perform well or to be, liked in a way, and really be the good suspect who's kind of answering all the questions and offering all the answers that she could.
I would like to look at the psychology of her again.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit more about that later, but yeah. So as they went on during this first testimony, she admitted that she had indeed administered various drugs to seriously ill patients in the hospital without a doctor's permission, and some of these patients indeed died. She also testified that she primarily wanted to alleviate their suffering, and also kind of admitted that maybe these drugs have contributed to the deaths of these patients. But there were so they were kind of hypothesizing this around 40 cases, and she couldn't really remember most of them, or she couldn't really remember a lot of the concrete details. So the second questioning took place in the hospital. She offered that they could go there together. So Tima and the investigators went to the hospital, and they together pulled up all the patient charts, all the medical documentations, all of the records of her previous shifts. And they started kind of listing all the cases where she remembered administering some drug that may have led to the patient's death. So out of the 40 cases, she was able to link 21 to potentially the administration of a drug that she decided to carry out without authorization. And she said that she only really remembers 10 patients very actively. But she could, based on the charts, find 21 and had very kind of clear memories about at least 10 of them.
It almost sounds like she's not really wanting to, like, how do I explain this? Or explain what I mean, but it almost sounds like she's kind of, well, not taking accountability for it for sure. Like, oh yeah, some patients like happened to die after I did this thing that I know I shouldn't have done, but like, well, like,
But
what's
she
the big
also
deal?
just wanted to help them. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a load of bullshit, and then also just no accountability whatsoever.
Yeah. She never, so she doesn't say that, yes, I murdered them. But I don't think that's
Yeah.
anyways usually the case when people confess to things. But yeah, it was more like she she was not denying at all that she administered these drugs, and there were witnesses too. So I think that there was never a question in this case that she did that, but then the question was that did she intend to murder them or not?
Yeah, she makes it seems like it's just an accident that they happen to die, which
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think is the case, but yeah, she
yeah, but it's a
makes
really
it sound
difficult one.
yeah.
Yeah. So altogether, there were 6 testimonies over the course of the investigation, and she also ended up writing a confession letter. So these confession letters are, I don't know if this works the same way everywhere, but I read now related to this case is that suspects are often, they're offered this possibility to write a confession letter. It's not, this doesn't happen in an interrogation room or anything like that. So I guess in her case, she was in jail at the time. She was in custody. And then over the course of a weekend, she just kind of wrote this letter by herself. These can be free form letters. There's no guidance about what you should write there. The only thing is that you have to state that you're not writing this under pressure. You're just you want to write this confession, and yeah, and then you can just hand it to the police whenever you want. So that's what she did apparently, and she didn't consult with her lawyer about this because of course most likely the lawyer would have said you shouldn't write such a
Yeah.
letter. Yeah. So she wrote it, she handed it to the police, and in it I read some, I'm not sure if it was the whole letter, probably not the whole letter, but segments of it. And she talks about, it's kind of a mix. She talks partly about how empathetic she is and how she wanted to ease these patients' suffering, and also partly about how she doesn't know why she committed these acts. She cannot really find an explanation. But she also mentions that she believes that this is not uncommon, that nurses do this, kind of globally even, that this happens, that nurses just basically end up
So
killing patients,
basically,
although she only...
how
Yeah.
she sees it is she's giving euthanasia, or how's it pronounced?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
That's what I just wanted to say, that she always refers to this as euthanasia. So she said that because I euthanized these patients. But she's always kind of going back and forth. This whole kind of explanation that she gives there is a little bit hazy, and then she's kind of jumping back and forth between talking about herself and her like mission, or like her empathy, and how it's important to her to be a nurse, and then she goes into listing very specific cases with a lot of details about what happened, what made her administer a specific drug. So for example, in one of the cases that she talks about, she says that there was a patient who was really badly suffering, and her roommates were complaining about her being very loud, and she assumed that administering painkillers don't really work efficiently via the intramuscular injections. So she just decided to give it intravenously because it works much faster, and this might actually help the patient. And she didn't think that this would kill the patient, but then, and she heard her voice for a little while during the night, and then only in the morning she noticed that this patient died, but that was not her intention. She just wanted to help. And then there was another case where she allegedly administered potassium to a patient, and she says in this confession letter that she saw from the doctor's facial expression that this patient doesn't have a long time to live anymore. So then she just kind of went
Maybe
ahead
communicate with
and
the
did it.
doctors with words rather than facial expressions.
I think she even says in the letter that he might have even said this, like the doctor. But she was like, I saw it in his face, or in their face, I should say, because I don't know if it was a he or she. But so overdosing potassium chloride, I guess, is it basically causes sudden cardiac death because first the heart spasms out of control, and then it just stops functioning. And it's also very difficult to prove later on, because when muscles stop working, or muscles fail, and the heart is a muscle. There's a lot of like a huge amount of potassium that goes into the bloodstream, so it's impossible to see if there was a kind of an influx of potassium from an injection before all of this happened. So it's very hard to prove afterwards if this was actually a murder or not. Questions about this?
Not really questions, just already wanting to rant about how contradictory she is with her bullshit. And yeah, but I'll just let you continue. I don't have anything to add at this point.
I have a quote from this confession letter, just a little segment that I brought here. But the whole thing, it would be, I was at some point thinking that maybe I should translate the whole thing that I found and then just read it, but it would have been too long. But in this little segment, she says, I could look most of my patients in the eye, but there are some that I could not. Already this sentence, what does it mean? But I don't know why. The whys keep piling up inside me. I want to let everyone know that I did not kill them. I helped them die. I've been thinking, I wish I could see what I've done again from an outside perspective in someone else's skin. See my facial expressions, my movements. Maybe talk myself out of doing things like that. Maybe I could be a friend of myself, of my former self, and she could share her thoughts and feelings with me. Because now I search in vain within myself and I can't find the right answer.
That's
Okay.
poetic.
Yeah, like after hearing that, it almost sounds like, when she's saying that she wishes that someone could, or herself could see from the outside what she has on her face and stuff. It almost seems like she does realize that she maybe got some satisfaction out of it or something, like some type of
Yeah.
glee or I don't know, some calmness to it that like most serial or like a lot of serial killers say that they kind of get like serious or calm or whatever when they're committing an act. So I'm just like, so I think she knows in herself, like a part of her maybe, and she disassociates or something. But yeah, like a part of her knows that she indeed enjoyed these killings. And yeah, okay, used
Yeah.
what helped them die, like not killed them. She can still never use the word I killed people, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just denying everything. Or well,
But
not
I'm
denying. I would say she
yeah.
just kind of just doesn't view it as an issue or a problem. She kind of like sweeps it all under the rug.
Yeah, I think that here is some kind of like, well, I have never worked in medical field, but I would think that when you work with dying people, that you must have some kind of, philosophy. You have to have this conversation with yourself, like this person is going to die, but I'm still going to help them to not die. Or should I actually be helping them to die? So maybe like this quite deep moral issues also, that like what is her view of life? Did she think it's kind of the right thing to do to kill these people as they
Or
are
was it
suffering?
just about control?
Yeah, or what? Yeah, like okay, I have these weak people who are going to die anyway soon, so whatever, I can play with them. Is it more of that kind of sadistic way of thinking, or?
And that's why I think
Yeah.
the viewing from the outside, I think it is a bit more sadistic. Like a part of her believes that the true motivations deep down were sadistic, and then she's like using it as a facade, this compassion, and constantly saying that she has empathy and whatnot. Well, obviously not. You don't have empathy, or else you probably wouldn't have done these things. But yeah.
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 Yeah, she also in this letter talks about how with a lot of these patients, she kind of knew them. She met them many times. She talked to them. She knew the families. So she's really kind of trying to paint this picture of being an empathetic, caring nurse. But then just this whole thing that she brings up in the end that I wish I could have been a friend, like of my former self. I don't know if this also maybe reflects a little bit of the guilt that she feels now, but also just her social isolation in a way.
Mm.
It sounded like she was not very, what her colleagues talked about as well, that she was not very good at establishing relationships. And I don't know. I think it's it's complicated, and the whole letter is weird. I don't know if we should have a translation and put it up somewhere if anyone wants to read it. But it's yeah, it's interesting because a lot of it is really confusing, and then half of it is like really concrete details that she remembers from cases that could be checked afterwards and said that, okay, this must have happened that way because that detail was definitely true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So she made several detailed confessions. Like I said, I think there were 6 of them at least, and she was mostly cooperative this whole time. So kind of it might seem like it's an easy case. It's easy enough. Like she confessed many times. But then the whole investigation and later also the trial was complicated by her repeated retractions and modifications of her statements. And sometimes she said like a slightly different version, or sometimes the next confessions were even radically different, or some of the details were changing. So it was not very reliable always, maybe. And she also recanted some of her confessions after consulting with her lawyer. So I think at some point during the investigation, her lawyer said, or kind of announced to the media even, that these confessions will be recanted, and so that they should not be taken into account. But then she, for example, said that she doesn't want to recant her confession letter because she said that she was only talking about her feelings there in the letter. But I mean, partly yes, but there were a lot of details about like names of people and like what happened during that night and things like that. So that was still very incriminating. But then it was even more complicated during the trial because that there were some details that were clearly inaccurate. So for example, she said about one victim that she administered a drug at 2 a.m. and then they had documentation that that person actually died already at 10 p.m. So the court was just asking that, could it be that you administered a drug at 9 p.m.? And she was like, yes, it could be. So, it's
I think those types of things,
not completely
I think
reliable.
those types of things don't really discount her confession as a whole, and like these
Yeah.
timeline things. I mean, I don't think I would remember, or maybe I would. I don't know,
Sure.
like how many people how many people I killed I'd probably remember, but there's also a reason why serial killers also take mementos or trophies, and they write stuff down in shorthand or in some code or whatever to remember those things a bit better. So I don't know if I would remember all 21 at what particular time I did something, but
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, that's very true, and I think that what complicates this even more is that there was zero physical evidence in this case, nothing, because the examination of the bodies was impossible, because actually it turned out that all of the bodies except for one had been cremated by the time the report was even made, and the only body that was not cremated also got the same drug that she gave this patient as part of their normal treatment plan. So it would not have been possible to show that that caused their death because they still got the same drug normally.
So
as well.
basically, if she had just said no, 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 I didn't do that, even with the polygraph test, because I know it's in the States, like it's not like taken as like hardcore evidence, at least. Like you can't be convicted on any crime, or I think especially murder, like with a polygraph test alone. So if if that was their only evidence is polygraph, and she just denied, and they had no evidence, then she probably would have gotten off.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, we don't know, but that's likely because really there was nothing else. Plus the witnesses that saw her administering something intravenously, but that's
Yeah.
not proving
No,
murder
and then
at
you could have
all.
also said,
It's just something that, you're not supposed
yeah,
to
and you could
do.
have also
Yeah.
said that, like, well, my coworkers don't like me, etc., whatever, whatever. Like, there's bias against me, so yeah,
I guess she could have been like fired if it's several
but
witnesses,
still, not a
or,
murder, not a murder conviction.
not a murder. No. But finally, her trial started on May 27, 2002, so the next year. and she faced charges of multiple counts of attempted murder and in endangering patients in her care. The prosecution argued that, obviously, that she had given the injections to seriously ill and mostly incurable elderly patients that caused or sped up their death. And the defense countered that she only intended to alleviate their suffering and not kill them. And many of the patients, so out of these 21 patients, it turned out that, yes, some of them died quite soon after she administered whatever drug she did. But then some of them only died a little bit later, like the next days, like not within the next few hours. So the defense was saying that many of these patients should have died if she was really the cause of their death, or if it was indeed a lethal dose. But that was not always the case, and it's impossible to prove if she actually murdered them or was this contributing to their death in any way.
I mean, I kind of get it. Like, indeed,
Yeah.
like if you don't have a
I mean,
yeah,
fair.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you end up having your nurse rounds, you have your patient chart, you mark down when you were visiting them or whatever, and then what you gave them. And even if she lied on what she actually gave them, like let's say, like in the previous example, 9 p.m., you went and visited the patient and then they ended up dying at 12. Okay, great. But then if they ended up dying at 6 o'clock in the morning the next day, is that like, what's the time that you could basically say that, yeah, that's definitely the cause of the death? Or is it also because of their terminal disease or chronic disease?
Yeah, so it's very hard to say, like, definitively that this was murder. But of course, yeah. Her lawyer was also saying that that these confessions were kind of fabricated by a confused and mentally unstable person's mind, and then she kind of just wanted to be in the center of attention. So that maybe even the confessions that she made were not entirely true. She just liked being, important.
That would be kind of
Which
that would
is,
be pretty fucked up though, wouldn't it? Like, I don't know, a bit of a curveball, you could say. Like,
yeah,
oh yeah, she didn't actually murder anybody, but it's all just she wanted to be the center of attention. And it got out of hand.
But the
I
fact
don't
that there
know.
is these
Yeah,
cases like false confessions, like people who just
Yeah,
want to play
yeah,
a
there are.
murderer without actually
yeah,
doing anything.
yeah.
It really did seem like in this case, based on the sources that I found, is that no one was kind of pressuring her to admit that she did this or to confess to these murders. But she still did, and then she said, "No, I didn't." But then maybe I did, but it was not really like that. So it was this whole mess. But she did confess many times with a lot of details included. So I don't know. It's hard to say. But there was another interview with her lawyer where he was saying that he only cares about whether it can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and the court just didn't have enough evidence, so that's why
Yeah.
she should not be convicted as a murderer.
Yeah, this would be quite difficult if you were on a jury to determine whether to convict. I mean, of course, there's probably more evidence and stuff that we're not hearing here, but judging off of this and going through each individual, like, okay, maybe one of those cases could have been indeed like, okay, died an hour later after the injection or something like that, possibly, or after she visited the patient. But that's also circumstantial evidence as well. So I just
Yeah. But that's the thing that, I mean, I think they were able to confirm from, like, for example, her confession letter and some of the details that she said that, yes, it did indeed happen like that based on the patient chart. So it kind of made sense, or it was kind of these two things were, corroborating each other. But then there was just like really no physical evidence. I don't know. There's not always a physical evidence in every case, but still. Yeah. Plus, there was this gossip about the higher death count during her shifts, which was also not really proven in the end. So other things are in the trial. So they, of course, some of her colleagues testified as well, and the testimonies painted kind of a mixed picture. Some of them defended her as a competent and caring nurse. and others described her as a moody, habitual liar. Maybe both of these things were true in varying degrees. There were psychological experts who characterized her as a lonely, attention-seeking individual with an antisocial personality disorder. However, they also confirmed that she was legally sane and accountable for her actions, and the court psychiatrist noted that Tima had a well-developed ability to empathize, but internally she felt like she was God, often putting herself in the place of the doctor or the patient and making decisions on their behalf.
Yeah, sounds right, I would say.
Yeah. Or I don't know, of course, it's not all the details that we have here, but yeah, I think this is kind of the general consensus. So finally, on December 2nd, 2002, the court delivered its verdict, and Tima Faludi was found guilty of multiple counts of attempted murder. I actually can't remember how many, definitely not all of them. Maybe 9, might have been a different number. But anyway, multiple counts of attempted murder and 4 counts of intentional endangerment of life. The court concluded that while she might have aimed to ease the patient's pain, her actions were reckless and illegal, and she was sentenced to, do you want to guess how many years?
Say 5.
I'm guessing 2020.
Okay, well, that's a big range. So
Damn
9
it!
9 years in
We
prison.
had our own country system in the background.
Yeah, definitely. I was
like,
gonna
if it
say
was
12, but I was like, well, yeah.
I was like, if it was Finland, probably
Later,
2 years,
actually-
but Hungary has probably more strict.
Oh no.
Shit.
Later, actually, this was increased to 11 years. So that was the final verdict, and the court also banned her from ever working as a nurse
that's
again,
good.
which makes sense.
I mean, even if it
Yeah.
was, if they all was accident, that's a very accident-prone nurse.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes. Get her away from
Yeah.
people. She doesn't need to be around people. But yeah, she's
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just hard because it's also like, okay, but did anyone actually die? Like, you can still question it. There's no like proof, really, like very hardcore
Yeah.
proof that any of those people died because she administered some drug that she claimed she had administered, because they could never see or never prove from, they couldn't, examine the bodies, like nothing. It was all just kind of her confessions, gossip, polygraph test, and the witnesses that saw her administering something. So I don't know. It's not
Yeah.
easy.
And I just want to point out that she's only 47 this year. So
Yeah.
holy
Yes.
fuck.
She's only 47
'Cause it
now.
feels weird. Like all the old
Yeah.
cases that you've been bringing, I'm like, oh, they're probably dead or whatever. And then now I'm like,
No.
oh no, she's
No,
she's
no.
less than 50. And she got out when she was in her 30s. Oh,
Yeah.
oh. Yeah.
Yeah. She actually served only 2/3 of her sentence and was released in June 2009 for good
Oh
behavior.
wow. So she was my age when she got released. Great. Right?
And she was reportedly a very excellent prisoner. She had no issues whatsoever. She fit in perfectly. She was great in prison. So, yeah, she was let out. And then apparently the only thing I found that after her, or since her release, she has led a quiet life and kind of, uneventful. Not much after that we know about her, which is fine. And then, like you said, she is 47 years old now.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe she found a job that she doesn't need to deal with people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hopefully she's not around
Let's hope
animals
so.
or people, but yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little bit more of the kind of the aftermath during this trial. As this whole investigation was unfolding, it really sparked a nationwide discussion and ended up leading to the review of hospital procedures in Hungary, highlighting the importance of strict adherence to medical protocols. It also spurred a debate about euthanasia and kind of overall impacted the public trust in the healthcare system. Just a small note here. So active euthanasia is illegal in Hungary, but there's a lot of debate around it. I think actually a pretty big portion of Hungarians, even today, there's a lot of debate, but a lot of people actually would support active euthanasia. But of course, I have to emphasize here that none of this, whatever happened in this case, it was not euthanasia. These victims were not euthanized because they didn't ask to be euthanized, nor their family members. So this was just likely the decision of one person who had no right to make this
Yeah, it's
decision.
like the classic case
But
of
still, of
playing
course,
God.
it led to this debate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is, I think, the part of debate, like, I think also in Finland it's pretty hot at the moment, is that, okay, what if you have a patient that is very weak and suffering and kind of maybe not in the mind of this making big decisions, and they are like, I want to die, and the doctor is like, okay, that's it, we will do it. Like, there is very risky borderlines.
Yeah, sure. It's very complex. But I mean, generally, I would say I'm pro euthanasia, of course, under very strict regulations. Because like I think in a lot of cases, it's just cruel to keep someone alive when they have no hope of recovery and they don't want to be alive anymore. So I think but it's complicated.
It is, and I also support the euthanasia, like voluntary euthanasia. But I think in a lot of these cases, it's I think you can either give your consent ahead of time before you get too bad, or there's some psychological examinations that you can also like, okay, yeah, the person knows what they're doing and whatnot. So I think there's ways around it. It's not just like black and white that this person wants to die, so then the next hour they end up euthanizing them. It's not usually that quick. So
Yeah, of course.
but yeah,
The nurse
I mean,
is like,
Switzerland has it,
sounds
right?
good.
Yeah, I think Switzerland and does the Netherlands also have it as well?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Switzerland and also Luxembourg. I don't know, like maybe a few countries in
Yeah, I
Europe.
want to say the Netherlands.
Belgium?
Yeah, those seem about right since they're kind of like quite similar. Okay, they're not the same countries, I know that, but they're similar, like Belgium, Netherlands,
Yeah.
and Luxembourg and whatnot. So
Yeah, but that's it from me today.
it was an interesting case. I think like you could talk for a bit longer about just the case itself and the evidence and just if I kind of want to know if she hadn't actually confessed anything, would she have been convicted? I want to say no, but that would have been an interesting, just kind of
Probably.
an interest.
I think if she would have really like said from the beginning that no, I did not do any of this, I have nothing, like really like kind of, categorically saying that no way, I have nothing to do with this, probably I would guess that she would not have been convicted.
And it also brings that point of view that she actually confessed and wanted to help out, that part of her psychology, which is the interesting part of it. Like she's a liar, but then she was trying to be helpful, which kind of is
I think she wanted to, maybe this like wanting to fit
Yeah.
in, or she really wanted to be, like accepted by whoever, like a community in a way. Maybe she enjoyed the attention a little bit
Yeah,
too.
I really want to know more about her childhood then. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's out there.
Well, thanks for this, Victoria.
Isn't given interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
So what do we have next week or next time in 2 weeks?
Is it my turn?
Yes.
God. Sorry, no. I mean, I don't have
We
a
have
hint.
God next. We have God in 2 weeks. Prepare
Well,
yourself.
aren't these all kind of, as I said, playing the
It's
God?
like that, or it's like that poster. It's like, "Ootko valmis? Jeesus tulee," or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
are you ready?
Yeah.
Jesus is coming. Yeah.
Maybe I could find some really wicked religious case or something. I'm sure there's lots of these when you go
that
to
would be
the
interesting.
countryside of Finland.
Oh. There was actually kind of like a weird thing. Like there was some storm, I think a couple weeks ago or like last week, in Oulu or like near Oulu, up in northern Finland, and I guess like some Lestadian people got struck by lightning. There was like a
Oh, yeah.
festival there. Yeah, that just brought to mind list audience and religion. But yeah,
Yeah, it was
okay.
like a kind of pole that, like, one person actually
Yeah.
died. Like a pole
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
fell on her.
I missed this.
Yeah, it's this suviseurat. It's the biggest
Gathering,
what would you
I
say,
guess, or
gathering? Yeah,
festival.
gathering
Yeah. Yeah.
of Lestadiolaiset, which is what is that called in English? Like a Christian branch, like a, what is it?
Denomination.
Herätysliike.
Yeah. Denomination.
Dem-
It's kind of like more of a hardcore version of like Protestantism, right? Or Lutheranism. Lutheranism. Sorry, I think it's Lutheran. Oops. Yeah. Yeah.
Christian revival. That is
Mm.
is like they are revived brands. They have their own idea, but anyway, Lestadiolaiset are the biggest one in Finland, and they are part of the official church, so they are not detached from the church, but they are much more conservative when it comes to contraception and other stuff like that. So they
So I
have
guess
a lot of
Petra, you need to
children.
bring something if there's anything about list audience in
Yeah,
the
now I started.
word. Yeah, you started. You need to finish it.
Yeah, or any sort of religious
I
crime
actually
or
have that in my
somehow crimes
family, so
related to
maybe it
religion.
would be interesting.
Oh, you can give actual. Can they use the telephone? Because they don't watch TV. I know that, but do
But
they
I don't think
actually?
they are nowadays so strict about the television anymore. Like,
Ah, okay.
they do revise their rules, like, to be a bit more according to the current times, I think. Like, probably the television thing became too impossible.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what you're gonna bring next time, Petra, or
Yeah,
not? I mean,
well,
we're not forcing
maybe.
you, but
Maybe.
Yeah, I'll find something. Probably something
Cool.
from Finland.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, cool.
Alrighty. Then yeah.
Yes, if anyone wants to final comment from me, if anyone wants to correct any of the medical things or legal things that I said, your comments are very welcome. So where can they send the comments,
They
Laura?
can send it to translationmurderpodcast@gmail.com, or you can spam us on Instagram at translationmurderpodcast. And I think that's about it. But yeah, follow us on Instagram, rate our podcast, please. Follow our podcast. And yeah, thanks for listening this week. Heippa ralla.
And I won't say anything about dick pics, because if you really need to explain the catheter with a dick pic, then it's fine.
Yeah,
Okay, but
Yeah.
only
yeah,
in
only
that case.
medical pictures.
One exception.
Yes.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.